Mandelbrot Set there from their brand new EP. We heard the tune Automation, and on the line from Adelaide, I've got Tim from the Mandelbrot Set. Tim, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Automation, the brand new, well, I guess it's a tune off the EP, brand new EP, just released, yeah?
Yeah, sort of. It was sitting around for a while, and I think MDS, who distributed it, ends up just saying, all right, what's this doing here? This is really good, out it goes, which sort of caught Rua on the hop a bit, because that was back in March, but Rua, as far as they're concerned, it's only kind of been out a few weeks. So, yeah, new in an official sense, but kind of been around for a little while. I don't know if anyone in Melbourne would have been able to get their hands on one before the kind of Rua acknowledgement happens.
Yeah, well, I actually noticed you recorded it last year, so it is, I guess, for the band, I guess it is quite a while. I mean, August last year.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way, well, not the way we work, because we want to work that way. It just tends to be the way things work with us and Ruha. I guess the distance and our sort of other priorities for them tend to kind of put our projects on the back burner from time to time, but, you know, they get there in the end, so there it is.
Yeah, now, Tim, I was actually in one of my favourite record stores, going back, probably 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I actually saw the new EP sitting in there under M, and I'm just thinking, oh, yeah, the Mandelbrot Set. I knew an Adelaide band called the Mandelbrot Set. I mean, the cover's something, that Snog would probably design, in that kind of...
Yeah, well, you can thank Simon Alderson from the art department for that. Obviously, I don't know, he was a bit thin on ideas that day, but...
Well, no, it's a great, catchy cover because it's...
Well, people tell me that it gets their attention, and a lot of people like it. I think, the lettering style maybe could have been a little more appropriate. But...
Perhaps, but the thing that grabbed me was because it screams at you from a techno point of view. I was just thinking, no, this is not the same Mandelbrot Set that I knew that came out with a place called Kansas, 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
I actually caught your gigs, when was it? When you played at the Tote here with Blindside. We're going back quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the daisies on the wall and the real indie pop. And I had to, literally take it out of the stand at the record store and play it, and I'm just thinking, wow, what happened to the Mandelbrot Set? I mean, what is the story? I mean, sequences replacing guitars.
Yeah,
You've really changed a whole new direction.
Well, they're not so much replacing them, although there are a couple of tracks on there that are pretty sequence heavy. I think it was just a matter of us kind of looking at the way we sounded and looking at our first record and thinking, yeah, well, that was okay, but it's not really fantastic, isn't it? I mean, I personally wouldn't have kind of gone out of my way to listen to it, and Adam, our bass player, always kind of had this idea in his head, maybe we should get a sampler, not kind of with the application fixed in mind of what it necessarily was going to be, more as just a kind of studio tool, I think, to kind of try and enhance our sound a bit. He'd like to sort of loop guitars around and that sort of thing. But I guess when we finally got one, there was just a whole wide world there to be explored, and we basically kind of set off on it, and that's the first kind of step, really, this EP.
My gosh, because I was just really astounded. I mean, as I said, remembering you in that real indie pop vein, that almost that shoegazer type band, and a place...
to an extent, those kind of ideas, from those bands were about kind of, expanding the palette of guitar bands, which I guess is what we've done. It's just, we're no longer just a guitar band, and we always maintained when Kansas came out that, something like this may happen, that we weren't kind of guitar purists or certainly indie purists by any kind of stretch of the imagination. So, that's a fair comment, and I guess it's flattering that you should bother to pay so much attention that you'd actually be surprised by the direction, but if you think it's a good one, then that's good. I'm happy with that. And if you don't like it, then, well, I suppose there's plenty of other stuff around that will kind of fit your
No, Tim, no, I do like it very much. I think it's a great direction for the band.
Yeah.
It was just very surprising because bands that were out, when you guys started out with a place called Kansas are still doing the same jangly guitar pop, and here's you on a totally different direction. But the thing is, it works, and it's great. I mean, automation, non-stop action. Even the last tune, the token 7 minutes, 39, seconds, it's great. It works for you, and I'm wondering where to from here now.
Kind of more of the same, but a bit different, I suppose. just playing with the technology and playing with the guitars. We've got a few guitar tricks that we like, that we kind of do in terms of sound and stuff. We're not quite as confident with the technology side of things, but, that's the kind of area we're working with, so maybe that's why that's a little kind of heavily emphasised at the moment. The main thing for us really was to we want to be a band that kind of makes, a great record, basically, is what we're trying to do, without trying to put too fine a point on it. And we'll grab anything that's going to help the cause. We haven't really done it. I didn't know what a lot of that stuff was going to come out like when we did it. It's really a case now we know what we want to do, and we've just got to have confidence in ourselves that we can kind of close our eyes, take a deep breath, and put out something that is, on the one hand, not like anything else, in order that it kind of fills a bit of a void that maybe people are looking for, certainly that we're looking for, and that we think is kind of there in terms of, what's happening in music. We certainly don't think, in Australian terms, we're very much, aware of sounds that are happening all over the world, and trying to incorporate the ones we like into our music, and, discarding the ones we don't as being a pile of old piffle. But, so, yeah, it's a hard question to answer. I guess I've made that apparent by the way I've taken so long to try and answer it. But
I have to say, I like Rip It Up, some synopsis of you guys when they say, to an extent you sound retrospective, and then other times on the EP you sound a bit like the UK mainstream dance pop groups from the mid to late 80s, Depeche Mode, Electronic, Pet Shop Boys. Have you got those influences running through the band?
To an extent. Not so much that they're, like great icons for us. I'm a bit of an old, electro fan, as it were, and I like that stuff. Just because we got technology, I think the one thing we wanted to avoid was like becoming a Def Effects or a Jesus Jones, where we're like this kind of, rave kind of crossover thing. We certainly didn't want to do that. And there's a lot happening in that kind of club music that's interesting, but there's been a lot of other interesting applications of, electronics in the past as well. So we were kind of conscious of them. And maybe conscious of being a little bit retro. This record may be, 5% of a fashion statement, but...
oh, look, I love it, Give me early 80s any day.
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's great. What's the deal with Ruat? Because you came out, you were basically virtually snapped up by Ruat from go to here, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. What is the deal?
Do you have to produce so many EPs in
Well, there is like a contract which specifies, particular things that are expected of us, and I'm not even sure if we're meeting it, and I'm not even sure if they even know what it is themselves. I don't think they kind of whip it out every week and read it and sort of think, well, what do we need from them this week? That obviously isn't the case, because we've been doing a lot more than what we've been doing, but... basically they ignore us for a while, they get other priorities, and then they ring us up and they say, oh, look, we're really sorry, we think you're kind of worth something. A couple of times we've actually said, well, if you don't like us, just drop us and, we'll find someone who does. And they've been all adamant, oh, no. They're either very clever or very stupid, and I haven't worked out which.
Are you looking for overseas deals at all?
Well, our contract should enable us to kind of get stuff out overseas, should the kind of, market warrant it. I think the difference between a label like Rua and the difference between something like, say, Summershine is that, Summershine are focused on overseas from the start, and they know their markets and they kind of target them. But Rua is kind of still, even though they want to play indie, they're still very much Australian corporate rock in that, well, you prove yourself in the market here and then you take your stuff overseas, because you've proved it here. Now, I don't really think that applies.
Yeah. I kind of have trouble understanding
that. A lot of stuff that we do that's geared towards, well, not necessarily geared towards an English market, but influenced by an English market, has been part of the reason I think that we found it so difficult in Australia. Not that I'm necessarily happy with anything that we've done and think this is good, I'd like this to represent us all around the world, because I don't think that's happened. But I think that day is getting closer for us, and this last EP kind of shows that. It's basically a bit of an indication, I think, of what we are capable of doing given the support. We can make a really good record, that's not an indie guitar record. It's kind of a contender in terms of, what real bands do, like real bands, kind of big bands that you read about all the time and stuff, and see on the TV, you know. Or maybe not see on the TV much anymore. But, yeah.
You still got the same lineup as you did on a place called Kansas? I mean, you still got Christy happening on vocals?
No, Christy went off to England to be a nanny.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
What a romantic lifestyle.
Yeah, big career move. But we've got another girl, Emily, who helps us now on stage. But basically that role's kind of changed now for when we play live. You know, 75% of the material is sequence-based, and someone needs to kind of get that gear happening. You know, they need to load sounds into samplers, and they need to press the play button, you know. So that's kind of the role of the mysterious fifth member in the band. But
otherwise, it's still pretty much the same?
Yeah, we're all still kind of keen and involved. And
great.
Yeah.
You're coming over to Melbourne to place your music upon us?
We are. I can't give you any kind of venues or anything yet, but we're definitely coming. It's all in the pipeline. We're going to play Melbourne and Sydney and Canberra and kind of generally be a rock and roll band.
Is the scene in Adelaide healthy at the moment as far as bands and getting out there and playing?
It was better. It was kind of better when we started a few years back, but at the moment it's a bit kind of down. There are a few bands that are good or that look like they could be good, but generally it's fairly down. Not a lot of people kind of go out to see bands, and not a lot of venues to play at. And, yeah, so you couldn't really say there's a scene. You almost could have a few years ago, especially with kind of shoey bands. There were a few around at the time, kind of doing things and trying to do things together and kind of make things happen in a way. Probably a lot of your listeners come to Adelaide a lot, maybe. They're the two closest cities, so they might know what it's like when they come here in terms of where people go and what people do.
Yeah.
The bands largely, don't really fit into that agenda very much.
Okay, well, do you want to pick a tune from the EP and we'll play it and you can announce it?
Yeah, I think Nothing You Need, the third one, that's kind of a bit of a fave.
Okay, we'll go for it.
Okay, this is Nothing You Need off the Mandelbrot Set's new self-titled EP.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay.